Welcome to the presentation by Sergeant George Durman. As we know him on the internet, Sarge or Sergeant George. Sergeant George grew up in East Tennessee, and we descend from two brothers, Simeon Broyles and John Broyles, who were sons of James and Eleanor Broyles. And Sergeant George had a distinguished Air Force career. He worked in Russian intelligence, and if he told you what he did, he'd have to kill you. But he has a degree from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. He attended Syracuse University on Russian languages and several other schools that the Air Force sent him to. And as everyone knows, he manages about 24 different websites on Roots Web, where he's the manager for, and almost all of them Germanna. And he lives in East Tennessee. Every year he has the East Tennessee Germanna reunion. Used to be Broyles reunion. Now it's been expanded to Germanna reunion every year. So, Sergeant George.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody here not know who I am? Before I get started, Craig, stand up. My thing's going to kind of dovetail a little bit at the end with the presentation he's going to give on courthouse records, but I wanted to let you know that I'm not the most ornery person on that mailing list. Craig is. I sometimes get that distinction though. Not just a tutorial today. I'm going to try and cover as quickly as possible a few things that I think you need to know when doing stuff on the internet. Mark's presentation was very good on talking about the web. And today, just about everything we do in genealogy now is through the web. People can't afford to travel from California to Madison County or to Culpeper County and look through courthouse records. It's just so much easier on the internet. And I'm going to try my best to give you a few pointers to help. Some warnings. If you're going to do it right. If you don't know, ask someone. If you don't know how to locate data, ask someone. If you don't know whom to ask, use one of the mailing lists. And I'll be talking about the mailing list in a minute and telling you how to get on them and what's available. And message boards. You got conflicting data, please discuss it before you post it on the internet. Don't automatically believe what you see on the internet, what other people have posted. And I'll guarantee you, you better check that one out. Do original research on your own. I go on the internet and I find mistakes, and I'll find 25 databases that are identical to the first one that was posted, and every one of them copied the same erroneous data. And it's junk. That's what it is. And then doubt even official birth, marriage, death records. My dad had a brother or a sister, and we don't know which. He never knew about it until we took a trip down to Smith County, Virginia. We found in the birth records where a daughter, Dora M., had been born. We go to the graveyard, and there is a thing next to the parents. It says Doram, D-O-R-A-M, son of. Now, which do you believe? Didn't the people know which sex the child was? It died early. But then the birth record should know what sex it was too. So when you find those kind of things, you just got to be very, very, very careful. You don't have to write anything down today but those two addresses. I haven't prepared any handouts, but I have posted the PowerPoint presentation on the internet, on the website. You can download it, print it out, read it. And then there's the home page for the first and second Germanna Colony Family History site. If you go to that address, that'll take you directly to it. And I've got just about everything indexed on the left-hand side for everything on the site and the official Germanna.org site, and it'll get you where you need to go. I took that over, 12 years ago when it had 2 pages. And it's grown considerably since then. Everybody got them? Databases, census, death, marriage, birth records, mailing lists, message boards, genealogy programs, cemeteries, churches, and maps. Those are all places we're going to talk about where you need to go to find data. Google. If you don't use Google, use it. Or use one of the other search engines, but I find Google probably has more good information. Wikipedia. Mark mentioned that, and we hope we get more and more stuff on Wikipedia about Germanna. On Wikipedia, it's volunteer contributors. Again, take it with a grain of salt, what you see. And people can go in and change it. So you can get all kind of bad information there.
Well, it's not permanent. One day it says something.
Yeah, one day it says something, but if a good article's put on there with the basic information, that's what we're kind of looking for. Who was it I was talking to last night about the LDS Church and ancestry? Is she here? The Generations Network. You probably won't find that many places on the web, but if you do a search for it, you find out what it is. All of these places are linked to the Generations Network, which is managed by the LDS Church in Salt Lake City. Ancestry.com, Family History, Genealogy of My Family, Roots Web, they're all, I don't know if we did call them affiliates, but at least they're associated with the Generations Network. And that's where most of your data is going to come from. US Gen Web is an independent organization, and you will go there and find websites for every state with a lot of good information there. Databases, you don't need to write these down. They'll be on the thing if you want to download it. But this is the address to get to the Roots Web databases without having to click through 4 or 5 different screens. It'll take you directly there. Same thing with the databases at Ancestry, and then there are some contributor databases that are lodged in other places, and you can go and look at them. Census records. That address, when you download your PowerPoint presentation, that takes you directly there again without clicking through 4 or 5 different screens. Go there. Birth, marriage, and death, same thing. Same thing on the government death and obituary records. Now, must register and pay. How many of you have a paying account at Ancestry? Costs you a bunch, doesn't it? What, about $200 a year, I think it is now.
But it's cheaper than traveling everywhere.
It's cheaper than traveling from Tennessee to Virginia or just about anywhere else. A suggestion, and don't tell anybody I told you this, if you've got some real close brothers and sisters or kin, get you an account and let each of you pay a little bit of it. And then you can all use it. Generally, you won't run into too many conflicts of use. But I mean, that's a suggestion. Mailing lists and message boards. It's too complicated. If you subscribe, you know how to do it. And if you don't, if you're a newbie, email me. That's that simple. And if you're newbies, how many of you are newbies? Now, a newbie is somebody that just started using computers or the internet or a database program. How many of you? If you have problems, email me. And I've got some cards up here. I'll give you my email address for that. When all else fails, do that. I want to try and give you a quick example of problems with doing census data research. We want to look for Henry Holt, 1870, and Culpeper. You go here, by the way, unclick this up here. It says match all terms. You don't need to match those terms because you're going to do a broad search. Type in Henry Holt, go down here and type in Culpeper County, and start there and hit search. You won't get any hits. But we know there was a Henry Holt in Culpeper County in 1870. Why can't you find him? Because somebody at Ancestry needed glasses and they wrote his name down as something besides Holt. You'll find it's H-O-L-S, H-O-L-Z, H-O-L-T-Z. Keep going back and using different names. In his case, you won't find it no matter what surname you use, guarantee you. That's when if you go down to the bottom of this page, you will see this. Go to 1870. We get to 1870. We know we want to go to Virginia. We go to Virginia, and I apologize for this, but that's as blown up as I could get it. And you want to come down here to Culpeper. You just keep following it down. Now what do? You see anything on there about Culpeper town or township? What do? Well, what I did is I started at the top and went to the first page of the Catalpa census and went through about 30 pages, and I did the same for every one of them. Now, this sounds like a lot of work, but when you get to where you are down to where that's the only thing left you can do, it's a lot of work. Look at there. What's that say? Jefferson. That's a mistake at ancestry. There was no Jefferson. Jeffersonton. And that was the enumeration district in 1870, and the post office was Culpeper Courthouse. The only thing that was here then was the courthouse. So you would go and you would eventually find Jeffersonton, and on page 6, there's Henry Holt. I don't know. Somebody saw that as an S or a double S or something. I never did find out how the transcriber actually entered it because I couldn't find it. Quick and dirty. Any questions on that census thing? You just have to do a lot of searching back and forth until you find what you're looking for. I had looked for my granddad's 1930 census for years. And that's relatively new, and I never did find it. One day I was looking for a Broyles in Washington County, Tennessee, and I was going down the list, and I saw the name Ward. And I backed up because my granddad went by Ward. His name was George Washington Durman. He went by Ward, and I looked on there, and to me it looked like Durman. But then I went back and did another search, and the transcriber had written it down as Dunnon. And I only found it by accident, or I could have gone and searched through 85 pages for that county and finally found it. Database programs. How many of you use them? How many of you don't? How many of you are going to start using them? I got this information from the internet. I think was done in March. It rates the various genealogical programs. And I'll explain how the rating was done in a minute. I'm partial to Roots Magic, and you'll hear a lot about that. We have some donations from that company to be auctioned off tonight. They just came out with version 4. And if you've used a genealogy program, you're going to be blown away by version 4. It's completely rewritten, and it supports everything in the world. This was the rating in March. Legacy, then Family Tree Maker, then Roots Magic, and on down the line. In fact, there's only one more. There's only 11 in existence.
George?
Yes?
There is another program. If you're a Macintosh user,
Okay, Macintosh. I'm sorry.
none of these will work. You have to use Reunion,
You have to use Reunion.
which is a very good program and compatible with these as far
Yes.
as exchanging data.
But the way they rated them was just different things like ease of use, reporting and publishing, and blah, blah, blah. If you look under Roots Magic, you'll see some blank spots down through here. And down through here. You can look at this later when you download it. But I want to comment, after this was done, they released version 4, and it fills in every hole in that column. I guarantee you. It's awesome. pull up two databases at the same time, compare them. Click, drop, and drag from one to the other. It's fantastic. I pulled up two for one of mine for Johann Frederick Baumgartner, and then one of Jim Baumgartner's thing, same person. And I can look at him and see what he's got that I don't have, or vice versa. If I found another son over there or a daughter, I could click on it and drag it over here and put him in here. But be careful when you're doing that. Make sure that the dates and the places are right. Because once you get them in your database, they're there. And you want to check them out and make sure they're compatible. Whoops. Right over here, see that? Map with a push pin. Let's say you're back here and you're wanting to look up Schwagern. You go up there and click right there, and it will take you online instantly to a map with Schwagern centered in the center of it. Fantastic. You see a world globe right there? It will bring up a place finder. And if you're looking to see, say you didn't know what county Brightwood, Virginia was in, you click on that thing, you go down the list to Brightwood, and it'll say right there, Brightwood, Culpeper County, Virginia. Just a fantastic place finder. The gray background right there, for those that are members of the LDS Church, this database is hooked directly into the LDS Church's databases. And there's no reason to use it because you have to have a member number in order to get in there and get access. But for those that do belong to that church, it's a fantastic program. Okay, if you, until the 31st of August, if you use another database program, you can get Roots Magic for $19.95. Very, very good. You can make up your genealogy chart as big as you want it. You can click on the message bar and go to the company where they will take that database and print you out a thing you can stretch across the wall 42 inches up and 100 feet long. Seriously. So if you're going to a family reunion, you could have your database and make a chart of it and have every ancestor all the way back 100 feet long. And a reasonable cost too. Multiple databases pulled up at the same time. Cemeteries. Any of you ever try and find cemeteries? It's a chore. My favorite is Epodunk. The problem with that is it'll give you an address, but it won't tell you who's buried there. But it's pretty good to start with if they've got an address. And it'll generally give you a GPS geospot. Find a Grave is the best. Then I Dream of Genealogy, then Interment Net, US Gen Web, Cemetery Junction, Roots Web Cemeteries. I have searched thousands of graveyards, and it really bugs me when people, I was telling somebody last night, I was doing one last week, and it said the graveyard is about 1 mile north of Highway 27 and about 2 miles south of whatever the city was. And I got me a map and went and tried to plot it, and it don't work. There was no place on that map that was 1 mile from that highway and 2 miles from the town. So, again, that'll be on the thing, the file when you download it. MapQuest, Google Maps, Live Search, Multimap, and Bing Maps. Again, if you're looking for places, you can use MapQuest or Google or any of them, and then when you get on there, go and click on, it'll either say aerial or satellite. And that'll pull the map up with the streets and everything on it, but it'll show you the photograph from the satellite. And you can often go on there and find graveyards that way. If you know the general location, you can zoom in enough to where you can actually see the graveyard and find out where it's located. So you got to be in the same general area. Okay. Place names, that's my pet peeve. I see so-and-so born in Madison County, Virginia in 1723. Does that have any significance to you? Madison County didn't exist until 1793. Yet people insist on putting in their databases the places as they are now. And this does a great disservice for us researchers. Somebody drives from Kansas up to Madison County, to the Madison County Courthouse, trying to find somebody that died there in 1750 or 1750. They've wasted their trip because that person's not going to be found in the Madison County Courthouse.
No, but they'll be happy to tell you where you need to go.
Maybe. I've gone into courthouses and they wouldn't tell you a thing. I mean, they won't make suggestions. So when you do your databases, please do some extra work, use some of these things I've already told you about, and find out where those places are located and put them down correctly. And if you have to, in the notes, put became Madison County in 1793, or even after the place, in parentheses, put became Madison County 1793, or whatever. There are Germanna people that were born in Essex, married in Orange, died in Culpeper, and had kids that died in Madison. And they lived within a half mile of each other, never moved. So you got to know which county to go to. And that's where you, as researchers, to help other people, need to make sure it's correct. Some addresses there. I've got on our website, I've got a place to click over on the left where I made it that there's several slide presentations on the internet, but I made it up where you can go to the bottom and look up a county and find out when it was created, and then go back to the top and look at your slideshow map, and it goes through the progression of when the counties changed names or when those areas changed names. There's a good example. Catherine Broyles, born in Essex County, married Adam Wilhite in Orange County, died in Culpeper County. Her first child died in Madison, and her other 4 children were born in Culpeper. So if you were going to go research Catherine Broyles, her birth, you would probably want to go to Essex, and I doubt if the records even existed. If you wanted to find her marriage, the problem is, right here on most databases, it will say Madison County, Virginia, because that's where it is today. So you go there and you're not going to find it. Capitalize surnames, please, in your emails, in your postings. It is so easy to pull up a person's posting on the mailing list and just scan down it. And if every surname is capitalized, you can just go zip like that and you see it. If it's not capitalized, you've got to read everything. And every mailing list that I know of, the admins, like I'm admin of the Germanna one, we recommend surnames in caps. It just helps a lot. Alternate names. John Jacob Yeager. You got him in your database as John Jacob Yeager or Johann Jacob. The database programs allow you to put in alternate names, so please use it. You go in there and you've got him down as Johann Jacob Yeager. You give him an alternate name of John Jacob Yeager. You give him an alternate name of John Yeager, an alternate name of Jacob Yeager, because you found databases with him in it that way. That way, when others come and search your stuff, like you're going to be searching other people's stuff, you will find, no matter how the name was written down, you'll find it. And it really helps in research. When you do your searches on the internet, you make sure that you try all the possible alternate names, even last names. You might find him as, you might have him in your database as Y-A-G-E-R. You want to also put in there Y-E-A-G-E-R as an alternate name. I've got people that I've got 8 or 10 different alternate names for, and that way when someone goes to look on the web and does a search, however they've got it, if they type it in, I've probably got it as an alternate name, and it'll come up and show it to you. So be aware of that. Someone else's database is not a valid source. To me, it's not even a source. I see databases where at the bottom where it says sources, it's got a list of other people's databases. That's not a source. That's something you can put in the notes of your database that I found this in so-and-so's database, but it's not a source. If they have sources in their database, then use them and not the name of the database. Check. I download databases or people send them to me, and I found people that were born before their parents, that were born when their parents were 8 years old. I found one child born in Colorado, and his parents never left Virginia. So when you look at databases, when you go on the internet and you search, before you do anything, before you start copying, before you download, look at some of the data. And if most of it's junk, forget about it. You might find a few tidbits in there, but if it's got that kind of errors in it, it's bad. It's just bad news. And I don't know, I find databases every day just about where they've got people that were born when their parents were 8 or 10 years old. And it's just bad research. Well, it's no research. They've copied from somebody else who made a mistake in typing in a date, and then everybody else copies it. So beware of that. Mailing lists. Anybody not know what mailing lists are? That's good. You know, we have the Germanna, okay. I started the Germanna mailing list 10 or 12 years ago, and I've been running it ever since. It's a place at Roots Web where you download what everybody's posted, and then you can reply to it or post one of your own. And turnaround's fantastic. You put a request in there for something, and then download your email again, and within 30 seconds, and it'll be there. And if it's at night when there's a lot of people on there, you may have an answer in a minute or two. It might be 5 minutes, or might be the next day, but usually it's very, very quick. On the mailing list, be specific in your questions. Make a subject line that makes sense to people. I see people write in and say, need help on Jaeger in Virginia. I mean, if you're a Jaeger researcher, you might go in there and see what the person wants, but sometimes you might not. Because if that person can't put a subject line in there that tells you something, you say, well, they don't deserve an answer. Get real, or Craig or I would jump on all over you about it. And we've done it. Put in Jaeger, comma, John Jacob, born 1717, Essex County, Virginia. That tells the readers exactly what you want. And if they don't have that information, they don't even bother opening. They hit delete and go on. There are 10 or 20,000 mailing lists at Roots Web. I mean, just unbelievable amount. I run 20-something surname mailing lists. Broyles, Bryles, Wilhite, Wilhoit, Clar. I don't know how many, just a bunch of them. The Germanna one, I run one for an email program. I run one for a genealogy program. If you have problems, you know where to go in Roots Web. Go to rootsweb.com, go down to the bottom where it says mailing list, click on it, and pick your subject. It's real easy to get to, and you can subscribe. If you want to subscribe to one, just send me an email and I'll do it manually. The message boards are companions of the mailing list. They are on Roots Web, but they don't download. In other words, you go to the message board and you'll see where people have posted queries and people have replied and answered them there on the message board. Now, I have all mine gatewayed so that anything that comes on the message board also comes to the mailing list, but not vice versa. It won't work. So many message boards are not gatewayed. So if, every once in a while you might check the place down on the bottom of Ruth's web for the message boards and see if there's anything posted there. The goal is accuracy, not filling in the blanks. And I mean that. If it's not good data, don't put it there. It is not the LDS's church's fault. No more than it is Ancestry when you find that bad data on there, or Roots Web when you find bad data on there. It's the submitters. And there is nobody in the world that has the time to go through what you submit and check it for accuracy before they post it.
What do you do with it when you get it?
I do like John Blankenbaker says. I get 6 different conflicting sets of data. You've got to figure it out. You go with the preponderance of evidence. And that's what John always says. You go with the preponderance of evidence. If I'm doing research and I'm looking for children of a family in 1870 in a certain county, in a certain state, and I find databases that give different places of birth for those children, and I look at this database and it's got them born in one place, or some of them in one, some in another with different dates, and they supposedly have sources, and I check them out, can't find them. I look at another database, it's different. Then I go to the Ancestry, or the census, and I look for 1870 and I find that family. And by gosh, it'll tell you there where they were living at that time, and then you look at 1860, 1870, and 1880, and the preponderance of evidence in that case is going to tell you where they were living, regardless of what the researchers say. I don't care what the researchers say, they're wrong. Because if John Yeager is in a certain county in 1860, 1870, and 1880, wouldn't you say his children were born in that county? If you've got no other evidence, put it in your database as that with a note saying, I estimated this, or I think this because of the evidence I found in the census records. That's what notes are for. Well, okay, let's say you're talking about a date of birth and as an error. You've got a place in your database program for birth, date, and place. You can either leave it blank or put in there something like leave the date blank and put in maybe in Virginia, or Virginia question mark, or something to let people know that you don't really have a perfect place. Then you click on the note for that event and go in there and type in all your data.
In the case of this book, if anyone is using that as their source, you know it's wrong. That book is a crime against genealogy.
It is.